What do you think of Mr. Trudeau?
So I think he's an egomaniac. And I think everything he does comes back to his egomania. Even his political ideology, if you really think about this expansionistic role of the state, it never comes back to serving an individual objective other than to make him more powerful or his legacy more grand. So let me give you a few examples. So he slashed the amount you can put into a tax-free savings account. But then he simultaneously increased the amount you were forced to pay into the state savings plan. He killed multiple pipelines. Then he invested state money in a pipeline. He attacked parents' ability to take care of their own children by removing tax fairness for families with a stay-at-home parent. And then he brings in a government program to replace it. So what you're seeing there is you say, well, this sounds like these are utterly inconsistent positions. And the answer, no, they're not. They're all very consistent. In all cases, what he does is takes away the ability of business or individuals or families to do things for themselves, and it requires they do things through him and through the state. And his ideology is always about creating a pretext in order to justify the state garnering more control over every aspect of your life, how you raise your kids, how your business functions, what you see and say on the internet. He believes the state has to be everywhere always, but that's because, as King Louis would say, l'État c'est moi. The state is him.
Well, that's okay. So I got a couple of things to throw at that. The first is, I think it's a very dangerous thing to attack the man rather than the ideas. But you're making, as a rule of thumb, but you're making a case that in this case, that can't be done because there is a personality trait that is uniting diverse policy decisions that isn't ideational or ideological even. It is in fact personal. And so my sense of Trudeau, initially, I was very upset with his decision to run for prime minister because I thought, well, you don't know anything and you're attractive and you can behave well in public and you have a charming facade, but you don't know anything in any real sense. And there's no indication that you do. You're not particularly well educated and you're not particularly accomplished. And this is actually a hard job, but worse than that, the only reason you even have the vaguest possibility of succeeding is because you have the same last name as your father. And then he ran. And I thought, well, how do you justify that to yourself? Because the gap of knowledge must have been painfully evident to him. And the fact that the Trudeau name, you could say, well, the Liberal Party came to me. That's his justification. They came to me and there wasn't another person that could win on the Liberal side and better a Trudeau Liberal, even if it's a consequence of family name, than any damn Conservative, let's say. But I still saw it as a manifestation of a really profound narcissism. I think a reasonable person would have said, I'm not prepared for this, certainly not yet. And I'm not the man that there needs to be in this position. And so I don't know what you think about those musings, but that's how I looked at Trudeau. And I certainly haven't seen anything in the preceding years that has disabused me of any of those notions.
I think there's some truth in that. His victory was definitely not a meritocratic one, and he was probably the least vetted prime ministerial candidate in our history. The media just glossed over so much of his life to go straight to help him and protect him. It was almost like they built a protective cocoon around him, and like he had dressed up in grotesque racist costumes so many times. He says by his own claim, he can't remember them all. I mean, the average politician had done that once. It would have been exposed and that person would have been expelled from politics altogether. He had run as a middle-class champion, even that while he sheltered the millions he inherited from his grandfather in a tax-preferred trust fund. All these things would have been front and center in the public sphere had it been anyone other than a Trudeau. But he was protected by the media, who still protect him because he really is their candidate. He represents the political class and the establishment in Canada, those who profit off a big, bloated bureaucracy and regulatory state in the old Upper Canada aristocracy. Know that he will always deliver for them, and he has. He's delivered mightily for them. That's why they're doing so well, and that's why they'll fight tooth and nail to keep him there.
Why do you think he was and still remains attractive to a substantial subset of Canadians? I mean, people seem to regard him as charming and caring, and I think he is charming in a kind of shallow sense, but it isn't obvious to me at all that he's caring, but he seems to play the part, and he plays it well enough so that, well, many people, and this is true of people all over the world, certainly buy the act. So why do you think that is, and how do you combat that?
Yeah, look, he is charming. I won't deny that, and he's a good-looking dude. But I don't think he's actually that popular. So people forget he got 32% of the vote in the last election. 68% of those who cast ballots voted against him. That's the lowest. He got the lowest share of vote of any prime minister in Canadian history. And before him, the record was set by him. In the previous election, he got 33% of the vote. He never actually reached the height, the vote share that Harper got in 2011. So we sometimes think he's an extremely popular guy because of the adulation he gets from the mainstream media. But in fact, he's not that popular with ordinary Canadians. What he succeeded at doing, to his credit, is engineering a very efficient distribution of votes so that with 32% of the vote, I think he got something like 45 or 46% of the seats. And that is the nut we need to crack. He wins a lot of seats with few votes. We win few seats with lots of votes. In fact, the last two elections, Conservatives have beat him in the popular vote. We just haven't got them in the right places. So that's the change we need to make, and I believe we will make in the forthcoming election.
So you don't think that it is a preponderance of Canadians who have had the wool pulled over their eyes?
No, he's not. By any objective analysis of the data, he's not an especially popular prime minister. And in fact, he's probably more on the side of an unpopular prime minister.